Usually we start in studio, but I feel like we got to start with Kasey here because he was very critical of what we saw from this U.S. team in the first window under Poch. So, Kasey, what did you make of the performance here tonight in Kingston?
Yeah, I really liked the first half. I liked the positiveness. I liked how the running off the ball, but I liked how when they got possession, there was pressure to go forward. Too much what I saw in that first camp was just square and backwards, and it lost any kind of momentum. The running off the ball was brilliant. That combined with that, and I think that the goal really epitomized that. It was that if I go backwards, I'm going backwards to go forward. I'm not going backwards to go backwards again or going backwards to go square. I'm opening an angle so I can get an opportunity to score a goal. And I thought it was really, really good in the first half. I understand how the second half lost a little bit of that. You're in a game that matters. You've got a 1-0 lead. Jamaica made some great adjustments, I think, around the 55, 60th minute and really put the U.S. on the back foot for a while. And I understand a new manager, look, you can get a response. Obviously, clearly he wasn't happy with what he saw in the first camp. And there was a clear response in that first half. But it takes time. It takes time to get a team to be able to play 90 minutes. But what I also liked in this game was grit. You know, there was some fight there. Jamaica obviously tried to wind them up. They tried to get players red carded. They tried to see if they could get the U.S. to bite. But they stayed disciplined. They needed a little luck when it was merited, and they got it, and that was great. But to go into a difficult place on a difficult pitch and to come away in this two-legged with a 1-0 away goal victory shows a lot of character.
Yeah, sets you up real nicely for the second leg, which will be Monday in St. Louis. Herc, you picked this as a draw. You said a draw would be a good result for the U.S., so they exceeded your expectations.
Absolutely. It's a good piece of business right here. 1-0 win. And Kasey, you've been in these moments before. You know that these, for as easy as it'll look on paper to the layman, to the people who've never been in this position, playing in a place like Jamaica.
What makes it so tough?
Well, you can start with the field.
Right,
I mean, look how terrible that field was. And this is the one thing about how naive this group has been throughout its process with the U.S. men's national team, or Greg Berhalter and now with Pochettino, is there are moments you can't choose to play out of the back. Joe Scally getting picked up. There are moments you can't dive in. Tim and Ream diving in once, twice on the same play. McKenzie not being there for his teammate, expecting the worst. Matt Turner thinking maybe I just hold up here. There is no angle for him to try to shoot here. It's too acute of an angle for him to actually do something of merit here. Don't dive in. These things happen. You put yourself in a hole, but the resolve, as Kasey said, it's very easy to go down. It's very easy to make a mistake, but can you lift yourself up? And I'm with Kasey. The grit, I mean, the attitude. We've seen the videos throughout the week of Matt Turner, you know, the pregame in Mexico City, of telling his teammates to protect Christian Pulisic. Or excuse me, before that, it wasn't Mexico City. Before that, in the opening game against Panama, you saw it today. You saw these players getting in the faces of Jamaica. You saw them playing with a bit more personality. And I don't expect games like this on the road in CONCACAF to go perfectly. They seldom don't. And if you look at the U.S. men's national team's record, you can see that they're not very good. You got a good piece of business. It's a W under a new coach. Tactically, I thought there were some interesting things in this game. Defensively, I thought you did well enough regardless of the mistakes in the first half of that, well enough. In the second half, you weathered the storm when you should weather the storm, and you came out with an important victory.
Yeah. And the note on how bad they've been away from home. What was it? We were looking it up during the game. 2 wins in their last 15 games.
One of those
away from
World
home.
Cup, which is a neutral setting.
Right, a neutral game against Iran in the World Cup. And what was the other one? It was like Bermuda? Grenada? Yeah. Right, so a minnow of CONCACAF that the United States was able to beat at home. So they do get the away win. It's interesting you mentioned tactics. Kasey, stylistically, right? First competitive game under the new $6 million manager. What did you see from Mauricio Pochettino's U.S. men's national team that was maybe different from what we've seen under Greg Berhalter? Because there were some guys, if we look at the lineup, who were kind of, maybe not new faces, but guys who were getting chances that I don't think they got a whole lot under Greg Berhalter. A guy like Ricardo Pepi up top. A guy like Musa in this role, kind of that, I don't know what we call it, right wing midfield role. McKenzie and Scally at the back didn't get a lot of run under Berhalter. Tessman and Cardoso. Tillman, who came in for Cardoso, didn't get a lot of run under Berhalter. So how different did it look, Case?
Well, I think what I really liked in the first half was the clean kind of 1-2 touch passing in midfield combined with great runs from deeper positions, either checking to the ball up, back, and through, and then making the run, or checking, coming inside, and letting a run come from the outside. Because on a pitch like that, there's a point where you can't pass everything. And also what you don't want to do is be so predictable that everything is being passed. I thought they mixed it up really well, particularly the first 20, 25 minutes, where they passed the ball short, but found opportunities to find guys long and clipped balls into channels and ran in behind. And I mean, and if Antony had that better touch and got that second goal at that stage, this game might have been completely different. But yeah, there was a point then that I was a little frustrated that they kind of stopped doing that. And I understand why you're holding on to a one-goal lead, but. And also, I think the pitch was heavy, so it was going to be hard to make those 30, 40-yard runs over and over and over again down the channels. But I thought when subs came on, they could have done a better job of that, relieving pressure, particularly as Jamaica made adjustments, put an extra man in midfield. I think as your personnel issues come around, I think we're still looking at situations right now where players are getting opportunities because other players aren't available. You know, I made a comment yesterday on FC that it feels like it's a 14, 18-month preseason for Pochettino and his staff. And sometimes because of the injuries right now, it makes it really easy to have that preseason feel. Because you mentioned Ricardo Pepi, and I agree with you 100%. He did everything he needed to do today, particularly in the first half. I thought he faded a little bit in the second half, and that's understandable because of how much he hasn't necessarily been starting, and starting a little bit more now. But for him to be able to come in and say, okay, there's no Sargent, there's no Balogun, okay, you make sense to start here. You've been saying that you've deserved this opportunity, or at least you feel like you've deserved this opportunity. Well, you got it, you scored, you did a lot of good things in the first half. Okay, you faded a little bit, but so did most of the team. But it was exactly what you need to do, particularly in that preseason environment when you're trying to impress a coach to get more starts, to get more playing time. And so I thought it was a perfect example. I was a real bummed to see Cardoso because I was looking forward to see how kind of he played in that role. I thought at times Musa did well. I still thought it was a little bit quiet from Pulisic, even though the action for the goal was fantastic. But I think overall, I think it's a very positive outcome. Now what I want to see is building off of that. Now you're going home. You're going to be on a better pitch. You're going to be in a home environment. Now, granted, if Mikel Antonio comes on that pitch, you're going to have a little bit different threat in the front from Jamaica, which I think we saw at times in that match that maybe if the quality of him up front, it might have been a little different outcome. But you only play against who you can play against. But I think the U.S. can build off of that performance, and I'm much, much happier than what I saw in the first two matches under Pochettino.
Real quick, Kasey, yes, no. Was the Ream handball, was that a penalty for you?
I didn't see enough angles, and I think that's what they were talking about in the broadcast, and maybe why V.A.R. didn't go to it. Yes, kind of from the angles that we saw, I was a little surprised that it didn't go to V.A.R. and they had a little better look at it, but I'm assuming that they just didn't have, because of whatever reason, a definitive angle to truly go there and have a look. But yeah, that was precarious for sure.
Any big picture thoughts here, Herc, on what we saw from Pochettino's team? I know we were watching it, and you looked at the setup. You thought it was pretty aggressive, given the fact that it was away against Jamaica.
And that seemed to be the theme of the week, right? Being aggressive for Pochettino. But I'm seeing clear patterns of play from the Panama game to this game. Mexico was a bit of a mixed bag. A lot of players missing. Your best player not there, et cetera. It seemed like Pochettino was kind of like, all right, it's okay. This doesn't matter type of deal. but you can see the patterns of play. You can see a 4-man back line that at times turns into a 5. You can see that Anthony Robinson will go and stretch the field and Scally will come in. You can see Scally oftentimes from the right back position come into the midfield. You see Yunus Musa, how he defends. A lot like we've seen him defend with Milan, but on the offensive end, the way he tries to come in and build in the game. You see how the free reign that Christian Pulisic has where he starts on the left, but oftentimes he's combining with Musa on the right. You can see certain patterns. I am also a little bummed that we didn't see more of Johnny Cardoso. Like Kasey said, this is a guy that a lot of people are high on. Real Betis was high on him from Internacional. That's why they brought him there. Spurs are high on him. That's why they did this pre-deal with the activation clause for the future. And yet every single time we see him in the U.S. men's national team uniform, in that jersey, he's not produced. Whether because he can't get on the field or stay on the field. And when he's been on the field, he's not quite, frankly, showered himself in glory. So it was upsetting seeing him come out this early. I very much would have liked to see how he and Tessman would have done more true pivots than Malik Tillman coming in. And I was very surprised Malik Tillman comes onto the field, but you put him in a 6-6 pivot position when you got Yunus Musa there, and you could have moved Malik maybe to the wing and chose not to. So there's a few things where I'm like, okay, I want to see how this plays out. I'm very curious to hear why Pochettino stayed the way he stayed or did what he did in that midfield. But that was the best thing they had going for them in the first half, was how they overran Jamaica's midfield. And in the second half, Steve McLaren at halftime made a few changes. Damari Gray came out. Remains to be seen why. It didn't look like physically or mentally he was into this game. Misses a penalty kick, he's out. But certainly, Jamaica had their chances. If I'm a Jamaica fan today, I feel a bit hard done. I feel not just with the referee, but with my team.
Missed a penalty.
You missed a penalty
at home, yeah.
You missed a penalty. Your expected goals were higher than the U.S. You had your opportunities. It looked like a packed house towards the end. The people were there supporting you. And you couldn't give them what they wanted.
Yep.
You couldn't quite get it there.
And you go back to the second leg now with a real serious hole if you're Jamaica going away down a goal. Let's get into some of these individual performances, Kasey. When the penalty gets called against the United States, Herc and I are sitting there in a room, and I'm saying, boy, this is a big moment for Matt Turner. Like, we haven't had a lot of reminders of why Matt Turner is the #1 goalie in this U.S. pool. I think that save was a reminder. What did you think of his performance tonight?
Yeah, I mean, what I really noticed was the situations as a goalkeeper when you're not playing. The most difficult part of the game is decision making, and what I saw was decision making mistakes. And this was a decision making mistake. Herc made that comment. Where was he going? And it came out in front of him. And come out there, block the angle, stand up. Make it difficult for him. Instead, you took him down. Here, comes out for a ball, absolutely no man's land, and gets super lucky that it falls to him. Look at this corner. That's bad positioning, recovers from it, almost cost his side not only the Olympico, but also the goal. Good recovery, because what you do have, now this is fantastic, to read that after some of the decision-making mistakes you made, I don't know if I would have been in that position after that, but I think what comes down to it is shots and shot stopping. You do 1,000 times in training every day. Decision making at that level is something that you only get from repetition in pressured matches. And so I think it doesn't surprise me that I saw the excellent penalty save, the great recovery on the positioning mistake off of the corner, but then the mistakes on decision, which led to the penalty a couple times outside the box in no man's land that he got away with. So yeah, that to me just looks like a goalkeeper that just hasn't regularly been playing.
I do want to touch on some other individual performances, specifically Tim Ream.
Yeah.
I think that's a guy who's always under the microscope. You pointed out in the highlight on the penalty, kind of he's beaten there. There was a couple other times where maybe he's not at his best. If we're trying to build a case for Tim Ream to be a starter, to be a piece of this team, did tonight help?
No, not necessarily. And I think what it does is it probably gives Mauricio Pochettino a perspective of where he can use Tim Ream. Putting him out in a situation where he may get isolated versus players that are very fast in transition, very physical themselves, may not be the best thing to do. But you can see that there are things that Tim Ream does very well. There are parts of the first half and second half where Tim Ream's on the ball, steps into midfield. You could see him literally put his foot on the ball and point to, like with 2 fingers, of where the player should be. One there, orchestrating. So you can see that Tim Ream, what the value he brings. But at this level, with the differences, the margin of errors that can happen playing away from home in CONCACAF, you just need players that physically are capable, and Tim Ream is not physically capable anymore. It's not a knock on who he is as a player. He's a great mind, high IQ, high game IQ, but certainly at this level, you can't leave him in situations where he can be isolated.
Kasey, before we move on from the U.S., I want to get your thoughts on Ricardo Pepi, because obviously it's such an important position for this team. There's not a lot of other options at that position right now. I'm assuming he's done enough to get the start in the second leg against Jamaica. I mean, if he has a good game there, Kasey, if he scores again, he's got to be thought of as your, at least for now, your number 1 guy at that number 9 spot, doesn't he?
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, and also there was things in the first half, and I think Kyle mentioned it in the broadcast a little bit, just some of the work off the ball. I think the one thing, what I really love is a striker, and this, obviously I saw a lot of them in my day. The striker, that timing to play off the last shoulder. And Herc, you understand that. I mean, you had a nice turn of pace. Pepi doesn't have maybe the turn that you had. So the timing of playing off the shoulder of the last defender is crucial. And I thought the timing was brilliant on that. I also like what he did kind of without the ball. I like how he pressured the back line, not necessarily running around like a chicken with his head cut off, but truly being smart with the way he defended from the front. I thought there was times, particularly in the second half, that he drifted into midfield too much, that he kind of dropped in and they needed him in that higher position, occupying the center backs. So, and because of that, I think Jamaica was then able to push that line higher up the pitch and pin the U.S. in their half. So maybe that little bit more discipline when you're not seeing the ball as much as you did in the first half, just to understand that that's still the role you have to play. But yeah, I think he definitely made a case for himself. And again, like I said, sometimes the opportunity comes to you because other players are unavailable, but you still have to take it. And I think that was some of the knock on Ricardo, particularly in the last few starts that he had, is it just didn't click for him. It just didn't look like a guy that was going to be able to play for, let's say, even like 60 minutes and then let reinforcements come off the bench. So great case. I thought he said the right things and he backed it up. And now you gotta, what you have to do then, everyone, what's the old adage? It's a lot easier to get to the top than stay there. So, but then you have to back that up the next time, and you got to prove that wasn't a one-off. And even if you don't score, prove that you can hold the ball up, bring other players into play. Do that. I mean, we saw it. You talked about, Herc, you talked about kind of the patterns that we're starting to see that Pochettino likes to see, particularly in that first half. Well, if there is a lot of up, back, and through, depending on either Pulisic going wide or tucking inside and Robinson coming on the overlap, well, you have to link up really well with that. And you have to be that person that can hold somebody off, then spin into the box afterwards for the cross. And it doesn't have to just be scoring goals. And it can't be just scoring goals. And so, good match, good case. And then now it's time to put an exclamation point on with another good performance in the second leg.
Yeah, this is history repeating itself. If we go back to the last World Cup cycle when it started, and how throughout the midway point of that World Cup cycle, who was the most informed striker? It was Ricardo Pepi. Who was the one striker that was consistently putting the ball in the back of the net? It was Ricardo Pepi. Ricardo Pepi didn't go to the World Cup. That's going to be in the back of his mind. So he knows it's not how you start. Right now, Ricardo Pepi's got a few goals with Mauricio Pochettino, but he reads the paper, so to speak. He sees the headlines. He sees what people say. He knows that Folarin Balogun's there. He knows that Haji Wright is there.
He knows that Josh Sargent's number one on your ranking of top nines in the U.S. every single time.
He knows all these things. But guess what?
He's the one scoring, and he's the one starting. And he's the only one available right now other than Brendan Vasquez.
I mean, and really quickly, Brandon Vasquez comes on as a sub. And if you come on as a sub, what you want is you want them to remember you were on the field. Even if it's a brief 5 minutes, you want them to remember, hey, when he came on, did you see that? he had an opportunity, a
Yep.
golden opportunity, and put it right into Andre Blake's hands.